Welcome back to the MetWorks. For those of you who browse the web, you're probably aware that on the 18th of January, Wikipedia blacked out its page in a protest against the Stop Online Piracy Act, or SOPA. But what is SOPA, really? Is it true that it will affect our civil liberties, take away our freedom of speech and information, or is this a scaremongering stunt by pirates to rally the public against the law? Here we have Alana, one of the editors here at MetWorks. Tell me, Lana, how does this affect your work?
Well, Alex, as an editor for MetWorks, it's important for me to use such websites as YouTube and such to download footage so that I can see if it works into our VTs. But once I've decided on the footage, then I acquire for the rights. But now they want to make us pay for the footage, even if we're not going to use it in the final product.
Oh, that's tricky. Thank you. Later, I'll be joined by Hank Hughes, a music producer in London, and Chris Jones, a film producer, director, and author of the Guerrilla Filmmaker's Handbook. But first, with 51.4 million internet users in the UK alone, we set off into Ealing to see what the public had to say about internet censorship.
In China, with the fact that you don't get Facebook over there, and then you can have a look at the extreme countries like the Western countries, and then you can have a look at somewhere with like North Korea, where they don't know anything that's happening in the real world because they don't get that. So there's like the two extremes. If it's in the middle, it'll be all right.
If you think about it politically, you can't, because you'll just take away your free speech, and you'll be like, you're thinking of like, you'll be like a country like China that takes away Google. You can't research the history, etc., etc. For people to learn, for people to know the truth.
We've been trying to sort this out for, centuries, and they've never fully managed to find a balance between, freedom of speech and, I suppose, protecting people.
I'd have to think quite hard to know exactly how that should be arranged so that you had the right balance of, freedom of speech versus content that you really wouldn't want to be available to anyone at, at a few clicks.
Most people still have to make their living out of music and films and TV, and it's really chipping away at that. So I'm not in favour of it.
Well, the jury's out on that one. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us today, Chris and Hank. Thank you very much. The first question would be, directed at Chris, what effects will the SOPA, if passed, have on the film industry, and how will it affect your business?
Well, first of all, I don't think SOPA will get passed. I don't think even any kind of hybrid version of it will ever really get passed. And even if it does get passed, it won't make any difference, because the internet is like a river. It will just flow around it, and it will find a way through. My interest really isn't in SOPA. My interest is more in looking at the world that we live in and saying, how can we best use that world to our advantages? Piracy is here. It ain't going to go away. We need to adjust to the way users want to receive and consume work. We can no longer dictate. The moment we lost control over distribution was the moment everything changed. And there's no point complaining about how it used to be. It is the way it is, and we need to adapt.
Very interesting. And Hank, what do you think in regards to the music industry?
Well, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with Chris. It's there's a monster that we're all part of, giving rise to with downloading and piracy and so on and so forth. I tend to feel that if it was something that could have been legislated against and dealt with, it could have been done a long time ago. I think right now we're all suffering from our own excitement with the internet. It's there, it's happening. What do we do? Do we legislate against it? Well, something has to be done, but I'm not sure that at the moment we've got it right.
Well, for every website that's closed down, it seems like 10 more are going to pop up. So I think, yeah, we just have to deal with it in a different way. Piracy has been prevalent since the days of the tape recorders. I'm sure y'all remember mixtapes. Why do you think it's so much bigger now than it was then? Because
it's so easy to do. From my point of view as a music producer and a manager of artists, you've got to realise that when a recording's made, from the moment that recording's made, then it only takes one irresponsible person to make it available to a friend and be free, a track to a friend, and then the next thing you know, a website's got hold of it, and it's been downloaded by thousands of people. I don't know, you know, what about you in your industry?
I think it's you know, the big difference is that with a mixtape, as you would call it, I needed 2 physical tapes. I'd go from one to go to the other. Now it's digits, and it goes onto the hard drive, and it can go in a million different directions in a moment. I mean, that's the obvious big difference, and that's even the same with DVD. DVD piracy, you still needed to make physical copies. Now we're virtual. Now they don't exist. It really is infinite. But again, I think everybody's kind of missing the point here. If I get 10 million downloads of my movie, that's actually really good news, because it proves that there is an audience out there for my work. The question is, how do I monetize that? How do I connect with my audience? How do I turn that interest, that massive amount of interest in my work into money?
Yeah.
Which in fact is exactly the same problem we have in the music industry. The way it works for people in my industry is that you make a recording, the recording gets manufactured, and then hopefully, you know, the masters are distributed to various shops and outlets. People go and buy that product, and from that the artist gets paid a percentage, a record company gets paid a percentage, the writers of the material get paid a percentage, and so on and so forth. Nowadays it's on the internet, so many young people, old people alike, go onto one of these websites and do that, and within 2.5 minutes they have that tune. I was working recently at Townhouse with Coldplay doing an album, X, Y and Z, I believe it was called, and I think before the album was finished there were tracks on the internet.
Right.
And that again is some irresponsible person in the recording studio. It could be an engineer, it could be a friend. They make these recordings and make them available on internet. Perhaps just send it to a friend and say, look what I've done today.
I'm afraid I'll have to cut you there just for a minute while we go back to see some more views from the public.
It has to be controlled to a certain extent, but you can't block out like Wikipedia, if you know what I mean. Because everyone, I use it for studying purposes. I think a lot of 1 million people use it for study purposes as well. So I think even though they have sometimes like controlled leaked documents, so I think it shouldn't be closed down. Only certain documents should be taken down.
There's copyright material, performance rights, that sort of thing. You want to protect that in some way. You know, just because people can put things for free on the internet doesn't mean that they should.
I think it has very fair points, but at the same time I think that it is a little bit wrong in terms of not everyone can say everything that they want online. Like sometimes there's a lot of hate and stuff. So no, I don't particularly agree with SOPA. Generally,
I'm all for blocking piracy because I think it's very destructive, and you know, people in the creative media, although they don't do it for the money, they still need to earn enough.
That's some very strong opinions there. Obviously, it's a contentious matter. My first question for Chris would be, what do you think the penalty should be if somebody is caught producing pirated material?
Well, producing pirated material is a bit of a loaded phrase, really, because people don't produce pirated material like there used to be DVD replicators who'd have 10,000 copies of the latest hit. I think most piracy is somebody goes, oh, I'd like to share this one file with my friend, who then suddenly explodes globally. I know there's big organizations behind it, but I kind of do, you know, as a consumer as well as a producer, part of me does feel that for too long, the entertainment business has been fleecing consumers for way too much money. Things have been too expensive for too long, and now it's kind of a bit of, I think there's a little bit of payback coming. I don't think it's a politically correct thing to say, but I think, you know, albums were very expensive in the 90s, really expensive, and when the point came, 20 quid for an album versus free, you know, but if it's cheap and it's easy to, you know, I don't want to be a pirate. I only ever pirate stuff when I'm forced to be a pirate by stupid rules and regulations. So don't create a demand. The way the model used to work was that I could create a demand, then I could stop you having it to the point where you really, really wanted it and would then pay for it. Now I create the demand, I can just steal it from you. So if you're going